What you're about to watch is more than just a heated exchange. It's a window into a deeper concern Democrats are raising about leadership, accountability, and the role of the military in a democracy.
Secretary Hegseth, you've had a tough start. At your confirmation hearing, my Democratic colleagues and I rightly questioned whether you had the requisite qualifications and experience to lead the DoD, the largest federal agency, especially given your checkered past, which included paying $50,000 in hush money to settle a sexual assault allegation against you and driving 2 veterans organizations into the ground. After only months on the job, our concerns about you have proven true, as far as I'm concerned. Instead of strengthening national security, you've turned the Pentagon into a dysfunctional mess. You are jeopardizing military operations and service members' lives with your unprecedented action of texting classified military plans to anyone who might stroke your ego. Leading the Department of Defense is more than just a PR campaign filled with photo ops. While you pose for cameras, Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine continues unabated. Israel and Iran are also at war, in large part because your boss tore up a multilateral agreement former President Obama brokered with the UK, France, Germany, China, and Russia that curbed Iran's nuclear program and ambitions. Meanwhile, China advances in the Pacific as this regime undermines and attacks our allies. At a time when steady leadership is critical, we are confronted with crisis and instability. Mr. Secretary, close to 5,000 Marines and National Guards have been deployed to LA without the request or consent of the California governor or the Los Angeles mayor, BLASTS. Rather than calming the situation, this troop deployment is purposefully inflaming and escalates tensions. You claim lethality is your top priority. Do you plan to unleash this lethal force against U.S. citizens and civilians in LA and other cities?
Well, Senator, I would reject most of the characterization of that statement, including lethality against U.S. cities, when all of those National Guardsmen and Marines have conducted themselves with the utmost of professionalism, defending our federal agents, Americans, who deserve to be able to do their job to deport illegal immigrants after the previous administration allowed 21 million illegals
I am not
to
here to
cross our
listen
border.
to your rhetorical responses. I would like to have a professional response that I would expect from somebody who is the Secretary of Defense. Millions of people peacefully demonstrated this weekend against the president acting like a king. Given this regime's dangerous policy of mobilizing troops inside the U.S., the politicizing of the military is a legitimate concern. So, given the dangerous policy of mobilizing troops inside the U.S., if ordered by the president, I'm going to ask you once again, to shoot peaceful protesters in the legs, would you carry out such an order from the president?
Senator, as I've said before, of course, I reject the premise of your question and the characterization that I would be given or are given unlawful orders. It's all meant to attempt to smear the commander-in-chief, and I won't fall
considering that the president in his first term actually ordered such a thing, it is not a premise that you can reject. He can do the same thing. So I think you would just follow what the president wants you to do. Let's face it is not normal to call up our troops in this way, and there is active litigation against this deployment. Will you follow a court's order regarding whether or not this deployment is legal? If the court says this deployment of troops into our cities is not legal, would you follow that court's order?
It's pending in the courts, Senator.
Well, when the court decides, would you follow the court's decision?
I don't believe district courts should be determining national security policy.
So you will not be following that.
When it goes to the Supreme Court, we'll see.
Court. And unless the president decides to appeal, there you have it. So I take it that you don't consider district court decisions to be legitimate. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
In this moment, Senator Mazie Hirono lays out a sweeping critique of Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, arguing that his leadership has introduced instability at a time when global and domestic tensions are already high. That national security could be undermined by carelessness or political motivations rather than disciplined leadership. But the exchange quickly moves into even more serious territory, the use of military force inside the United States. Hirono questions the deployment of National Guard troops and Marines without local consent, framing it as a dangerous escalation that could blur the line between civilian governance and military authority. That's a long-standing red line in American democracy, and it's why her questions about whether troops could be used against civilians carry so much weight. Notice how the tension builds when she asks a direct question: if ordered by the president to use force against peaceful protesters, would the secretary comply? Instead of a clear yes or no, the response shifts to rejecting the premise. From a democratic viewpoint, that kind of answer is troubling, not because it confirms anything outright, but because it avoids setting a clear boundary on what is and isn't acceptable. Then comes another critical point: the rule of law. Hirono presses on whether court orders would be followed if judges ruled against these deployments. The hesitation in that response touches on a fundamental principle: civilian and judicial oversight of the military. If leaders signal that they may sidestep lower court rulings, even temporarily, it raises concerns about how checks and balances are functioning in practice. What makes this exchange important is that it connects several big ideas: military authority, presidential power, and legal accountability into one real-time confrontation. It's not just about personalities. It's about how power is exercised and where the limits are drawn. As you watch, pay attention to what's said and what isn't. Because in moments like this, the gaps in answers can be just as revealing as the answers themselves. If you want more breakdowns that help you understand what's really happening behind these high-stakes hearings, stay engaged and keep following along.